and I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So, hey, cheers to everybody in the chat.
They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension, everything, and the drama.
How dare! Look at this. How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with it.
Tyler, did you actually watch Canucks Twitter last few days? There's no semblance of calmness whatsoever right now. And they're in either the Canucks or Flames Twitter right now. We're not going to calm down. We're going to be exactly the opposite on this Family Day recording of the podcast. Welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. Of course, you can follow us on Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks, Twitch.com Shifts and Pucks. Subscribe wherever you get your audio, as well as subscribe wherever you get your audio. And we're recording this after it's Family Day. The families all got together, and in Minnesota there was a game of shinny that was played between the Vancouver Canucks and Minnesota Wild, and the Wild won, yes, not a typo, 10-7, proving that the Minnesota Wild are better than the Minnesota Vikings at football. Anyway, and then the Calgary Flames, which we'll get into a little later, they scored 4 goals on Connor Hellebuck. The first time that has been done since November. Oliver Shillington scores his first goal in over a year since his comeback. Sean Monahan has a natural hat trick, but the Flames come away with a 6-3 victory. We'll greet everyone. Hello, Sean. How are you?
Hey, Kev. I'm doing okay. I think I've recovered from this afternoon. It's been a long time since I've gotten ridiculously over the top and animated with Canucks hockey. That pattern went out the window, down the street, got run over by a taxi, and yeah, I hope my neighbors didn't get too upset with my yelling.
How was that meditation to calm down there, Sean?
I did have to, yes.
Chris, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well, Kev. I was going to jump in earlier and kind of interrupt a little bit and be like, Canucks Twitter is going to Canucks Twitter.
Yeah, they just Canucks Twittered more, though. It was just at another level. We'll get into kind of the comments. And from Ontario, close to Peterborough, Ontario, I've not seen this gentleman in a long time. Devin, you're here?
I'll be here as long as I can. Be in the country. I was going to say the cell reception, but the Wi-Fi isn't the best, so it comes in and out. But I'm happy to be here. I took a while to get across Canada. I moved from Calgary to just north of Peterborough, and it took me 4 days to get there. 2 days later, I flew back to Calgary to drive to Vancouver and then back to Calgary. And now I flew back to Ontario now. So I pretty much have gone 2/3 of the way across Canada.
Wow. You were on a lengthy road trip.
Yeah. And you know what? Ironically enough, I checked to see how far it would take me to get to the end of the Maritimes. And it's still 30 hours from where I am, which blows my mind.
Canada, too damn big.
It's fucking huge.
Yeah, it's huge. It is. Well, we miss you, and we're really glad to have you on. And there's lots to talk about. There's probably a lot to catch up on, but we'll start with the Canucks here. Although with your Wi-Fi, I'm just wondering, should we go Flames first, or are you going to be? Will we last?
I would love to start with my win of the Cornhole Championship here in Buckhorn. Would love to start with that. This says cornhole champs. Okay.
Nice.
I got a plaque. And
I'm
then
so
I
proud
also
of you.
won the Family Day Buckhorn Winter Champion right here. So we played the little fun thing that happened on the weekend. Every year, Kalen's family and a bunch of their friends have a winter golf tournament for 9 holes where they make their own 9-hole golf course on a frozen lake. It was so much fun.
Awesome.
So I mean I'm starting off on a really good note here in Ontario with winning 2 trophies, and Kalen's parents' friends thinking I'm some sort of god out here, and lo and behold, they have no idea who the hell I am, how much of a degenerate I am.
Great. So you will now beat me at golf in 2 seasons. Awesome.
So I just want to start with that, which I'm very proud of, and I'm going to have these for the next year.
Well, I'm sorry I have to do this joke. That's more championships than the Leafs have won in the last 40 years.
I'll take the wins where I can take them, Gav.
Sorry, I have to correct. Let's start with the Canucks. I could feel the emotion on my left side, or your left side of for those that are watching, probably on the left speaker on your podcast. The Vancouver Canucks have had a very interesting weekend where started on Saturday. They played the Winnipeg Jets and lost at the end. It was 4-2. A really good hockey game, I thought, overall. But and then today the 10-7 game where the Canucks were at 5-2. They allowed 7 goals in the third period. That was as chaotic as a hockey game had been since the Flames and the Oilers played a couple of years ago in 2022, where that was an 8-6 game or a 9-6 game. A lot of chaos, probably different emotions going on here. But I felt Go ahead, Sean.
I was going to say, I think Tyler hasn't shown up for this one because he doesn't want to feel the wrath of Canucks fans.
I got a message from Tyler. Kevin's on. Fuck you. That's what he said. I don't
know. He knows better to come on than while I'm on. I understand.
Hi, Tyler. We love you.
Fuck you, Tyler.
Okay. So, do we want to discuss the officiating, or do we want to kind of drill into what is going on here?
I think that's dependent on Sean's current mood.
I would say that literally that game, you basically crumple it up, toss it in the garbage bin, put it in the trash compactor, and just let it move on, because that was just, especially the third period specifically, was just that's not the Canucks we know. That's not the Canucks who are tops in the league for this year. Like, that was just dreadful, and there's nothing you can hyper analyze that all you want, but it's not going to do anything.
To quote Ted Lasso, be a goldfish. Forget about it and move on.
Okay. Is there anything to take away from the Winnipeg Jets game?
I was actually in Rogers Arena for that game. First time getting to see the new Jumbotron, which is definitely impressive. You almost want to watch the game on the Jumbotron. It's so distractingly big. But no, as you were saying, Kev, overall, I thought it was a pretty well-fought game. The biggest, I guess, downside was the fact that the Canucks power play is definitely in a slump right now. And that was really the X factor in that game.
Yeah, I kind of thought it was the top 6 of Winnipeg outplayed the top 6 of Vancouver, but I want to be careful how I say that. In some ways, because I think that this is going to be because it became some pointed criticism at a particular player. That's what we call a tease, that we'll get into. But definitely felt like the top six in Winnipeg played a lot better. One of the turning points was the Gabe Vilardi goal on Thatcher Demko, which wasn't the best goal, but it wasn't like that. I thought that Demko played bad. It was just an awkward goal that he allowed on Vilardi. And to me, what that came down to, and one of the things why I am so anti-tank and so anti-Lake, this whole mentality of not trying to get into the playoffs. One of the reasons the Winnipeg Jets won that game is because they had big game experience that the Canucks have not yet acquired. And you look at like the Jets played in the playoffs the last year. Yeah, they got eliminated in 5. But LA, Gabe Vilardi in LA played in the playoffs. Connor Hellebuyck had that. All of that playoff experience really came to the forefront for win it. And I think that was in part why Winnipeg wins that game in Vancouver. I don't want to say had the jitters, but they didn't they didn't have the urgency that the Winnipeg Jets had ultimately was what I saw as a different thing.
Is that Kev, is that a pattern you're seeing, or is that just a one-off?
I think that's a one-off, but we haven't really seen Vancouver go through some of the. We're now at the point where people are taking the Vancouver Canucks a lot more seriously because where they are in the standings, they're becoming the hunted as opposed as to the hunter. So this is new territory for them, and I think that that's the challenge that the Canucks are facing right now. Teams are going to take them very seriously. They are playing teams that need the wins more than the Canucks. The Jets are in a battle to possibly get to first in the Central. The Wild are in a battle to, pardon the pun, get into a wild card spot. These are not teams that they need the points, right? Where the Canucks are kind of in that coast mode. So that's kind of what I'm seeing at this point. So I don't know. Certainly to me, I don't have a panic button for either of these two games. Like, is it okay to lose 10-7? No. Is it I think you have to toss it away. It's not like they've allowed 10 goals within the last 3 or 4 games here. This seems to be a one-off. They, caught standing still in a lot of ways in the third period, and the Wild were skating, the Canucks were not, and that's what happens. That's how I'm looking at it. I don't think there's anything to panic about here.
No.
Now, the one thing I want to say here, I just did a few searches on the stats of their power play. Since the beginning of February, 8 games, they are sitting at 12%. And out of those 8 games, there's 7 games of them that has Elias Lindholm on that top power play unit. Is there a correlation? What are you guys thinking? Because I haven't watched much Canucks hockey recently, but when I saw that trade coming in from Calgary to Vancouver for Lindholm, I was thinking, holy shit, look the fuck out. But what's going on with Lindholm and what's going on with the power play?
I think a lot of that is just them, figuring it out as they go. And they basically had essentially the same unit to begin this from the beginning of the season till that trade. And they had some other pieces thrown in there throughout when Kuzmenko was scratched or not playing on the top line. But for the most part, it was all there. But you're also bringing in a piece like Lindholm, bringing him in and trying to make sure that he's involved and using his strengths. And then they're just trying to figure that out. And I think we'll get into that a little bit later as well. But I think a lot of that is just them figuring out how to make use of Lindholm and not overthink things, because I feel like that's where they're at on the power play right now. Is there's too much thinking and not as much instinctual playing.
That instant chemistry is a hope, not an expectation. So you can't obviously everyone would love it if he just fit in perfectly and was able to just be on fire and absolutely launch the power play back to where we want it to be. But that being said, you can't expect that, and there's going to be a little bit of a growing pain and him kind of adjusting to the way that the Canucks run their systems compared to Calgary. And
this has been a very difficult year for Elias Lindholm. I think with the whole free agency lingering over him, the whole situation in Calgary. I think he got a bit of a raw deal from the fans in Calgary. I think that the comments on Elias Lindholm on social media were, and I'm standing by this, some of the dumbest things that I've ever seen on Flames Twitter and possibly hockey Twitter. Like, I really don't know if people were actually watching hockey or just doing hot takes. Like, it was ridiculous. And I think it's been as I said, it's been a tough year. I'm not going to sit here and say that he's been awesome, but he came into Vancouver with 8 goals, and now he has 13. He scored 5 goals with the Canucks, and I think he's got a couple of power play goals. So I don't know if I can sit here and say blame Lindholm, but it is it's a chemistry issue in terms of like trying to determine where Elias Lindholm fits in the lineup. Do you play him at center? Do you play him on the wing? I think that's the kind of the question. Where does he fit? I mean, I think that the determination has been to put Elias and Elias together, which is not a bad idea. I think the question is who's the center and who's the winger, maybe, and who plays with him, because one of the other unfortunate problems right now is Ilya Mikheyev is gone 29 games without a goal, I think, is it now? It's a really long time that Ilya Mikheyev hasn't scored. So that's part of the other problem here. So I don't know if it's necessarily Lindholm that is particularly the problem, but I'm a noted Elias Lindholm defender. So maybe someone has seen something different.
You know, I really appreciate the fact that you're saying Elias and Elias. When I was listening to Sports Talk Radio in I was going to say Toronto, in Vancouver, people calling him Elias Lindholm or Elias Lindholm drove me nuts. It was driving me up the fucking wall. It's like, guys, let's figure this shit out. You're one of the biggest. You're the second biggest hockey market in Canada. Let's fucking figure this out, for God's sakes. But I think going back to the hockey side of things, I think really the fact that Alvin pulled the trigger and Conroy pulled the trigger as soon as they did, or sooner than normal, before the trade deadline, it really bodes well to find that chemistry to be successful within the playoffs. So, God, we've been talking about this on this podcast for at least 3 years now. The sooner that you can pull a trade before the trade deadline gives them a more a better chance for the player going to the new team to figure out the chemistry, because like Chris said, it's instant chemistry is a hope, but you like, if you find it, great, but if you don't, man, it's really hard to figure that out within a month and a half. So this is the best time to go through a slump, if you will, quote unquote, before the trade deadline and before the playoffs, so that you can actually come out of the regular season firing, for lack of a better hockey analogy, firing on all cylinders, and being able to be rolling once you hit that first round, because the sooner you get out of the first round, man, the better you're off, because it can be a grind.
And to that point, I'm almost hoping that I'm almost hoping that they actually kind of continue to struggle a little bit longer, just because they haven't had anything longer than a 2-game losing streak this season. And the last thing us as Canuck fans want is to finally get back to the playoffs and then pull a Tampa or Boston and go out in the first round like that. You want it to be competitive. Like, obviously, like BX said on Hockey Night in Canada a couple weeks ago, like, we don't want to just automatically assume we're cup contenders. Like, we shouldn't get too inflated with how the season has gone, but you also don't want to just flame out in the first round right away either. So I want us to go through a little bit of adversity first before we get to the playoffs.
I'm surprised you didn't throw Toronto in there, which I appreciate. Thank you.
I'm trying to stay on the good side.
Well, it's the Boston Tampa examples are the two best regular seasons in, like, I think in NHL history, or two of the best. And then they both flamed out pretty quickly. The power play, I think that is a work in progress. In terms of 5-on-5, where with Elias and Elias, I think they've got their third player on that line now. I think with Neil, at least right now, Niels Höglander has looked really, really good and that line's been looked pretty good since for the most part since they've been put together. And I think you stick with them and let them work through if they have more than one game off, let them work through it. But the biggest thing let's get into this right now. Like, part of the not only was Elias Lindholm getting some flack, but Elias Pettersson was also getting some flack from media and fans in the Vancouver market, saying that they don't know what to expect from him game to game, whether or not he's worth the money that he's asking for on this next and he'll get on this next contract. You look at what he's gone through this season with his line mates. He started out with Kuzmenko and Mikheyev. He's now with Lindholm and Höglander, so he's had a complete swap there. He hasn't had one player he's been able to rely on go throughout the season, like Miller and Besser have been for each other. And then you look at the third line, which Garland got injured today, and Joshua's out week to week now, so that's not helping things there for the Canucks. But they haven't been able to find the right chemistry with Petey this year because of players not playing to their potential. And
he's almost getting the Bo Horvat treatment in that regard.
A little bit, yeah. But I think if they can, that's why I want them to stick with having Lindholm and Höglander on Pettersson's line and see what chemistry they can build, because so far I think they've shown spurts of being a very good line. And if you could have Miller and Besser, and they've had Suter there for the last little bit as one line, and then you've got the Sweden line as another line, that's a really good 1-2 punch, let alone once the third line gets healthy again. That's going to be tough for teams to handle.
Now with Pettersson, though, I've heard him, and I've seen this on multiple broadcasts throughout the years, that when things aren't going his way, his body language changes, and he's becomes a bit of a pouty pants. And I mean, you got to surround yourself and your core players with the best players that they can play with, and set them up for success. But at the same time, if you want to be a play driver and you want to be one of the elite within this league, you can't be pouting all the time.
Can I counter the body language part, though, just for a quick second? Is it different than a lot of the elite players that are going through this? Like, Johnny Gaudreau was a pouty pants. Many times Johnny Gaudreau was a pouty pants. There has been other people. Sidney Crosby went through some pouty pants. Connor McDavid went through some pouty pants.
I was going to bring up Pavel Bure just as far as Canuck comparisons.
Leon Draisaitl is pissy even when he scores. So I don't know. Like, I feel like a lot. Pettersson is taking the next step in his evolution of being one of the great players in this league. And that is part of the growing. I think Pettersson is going through growing pains. I do not think there's anything to worry about with Pettersson at all. At all. This is part of that evolution of becoming that next superstar that we talked about. The criticism people have had about Crosby before Crosby won 3 cups. The criticism people had about Ovechkin before Ovechkin won a cup. The criticism some people want to give McDavid before he's taken that next. He's in that kind of that position right now, right? And I think this is just part of the evolution. I don't know why there's worry about Pettersson. I think this is just part of.
I think it's a skewed, very hyper focused thinking that he can be at his best every game, sort of expectations that get put on these top players, especially within market. You talk about not knowing what to expect from Pettersson game to game. He's scored in 2/3 of the games for the Canucks this year. You know, he's also scored, put up points in 2/3 of the team game the games that he's played in this season. Austin Matthews, they're McDavid, I think it's like 81% of the games he produces a point. But we all know McDavid's sort of on another level in terms of point production and all that, and consistency in that. I bet you if you look at most of the top superstars in this league, even the ones who are point per game players, they average point per game, they're probably in that 65 to 75% range in terms of producing a point in terms of for each game. And I honestly feel like it's unfair, unrealistic expectations in an 82 game season. 82 games to play to be at your best is impossible. You're not going to be at your best. You're going to go through slumps. You're going to go through times when things aren't going the way you want them to go. No matter how hard you try, no matter how good your body language is or bad your body language is, it's shit like that's going to happen. You're going to have downtimes. And it's how you bounce back. It's how you get to the next and how you learn from it. And I think I agree with you, Kev. I think a lot of it is just Pettersson taking the next step. He scored 100 points last year. He's on pace to do it again this year. And he's starting to get that attention. And he's starting to have to work. Even harder to get open, harder to get those points. And I think he is stepping up there, but he's going to have off games.
And part of the reason why this is a quote unquote headline in the local media is because the people that are talking about this get paid to talk about sports, and they're just looking for relatively low hanging fruit for content. And that's an easy thing that they can pick on.
Now, my counter within this, and it doesn't mean that I disagree with you guys, is that don't you want to have some sort of professionalism within the way that you conduct yourself? And I appreciate the compete within the showing your emotion, because we talked about this on this podcast as well, about Miller showing how much he hates losing and how much he really dislikes the whenever anything goes wrong, and he's very vocal within having that conversation with his teammates. But in my mind, as far as Pettersson goes and those other elite players, yeah, you can be upset that you didn't win, and you can be upset that a play didn't go your own way. But I mean, how is he outside of the offensive side of his game?
Oh, he's still a good 200-foot player for the most part. Yeah, mistakes happen, but I think the big thing here is they lost a little bit of a jokester and all that in that Lindholm trade and trading Kuzmenko away. As I do wonder if the locker room is too serious and just too serious. I think you need to have a little someone to counter that.
There's got to be the court gesture in the court.
Who is this? Who are we talking about here? A Philip Kessel?
There we go. And I wonder if that's kind of a little bit of what they're thinking of here. And he'll be a 13th, 14th forward, but he can just be that. He can breathe some life into it. enjoyment into it, because you've got some absolute hockey nerds on that team, some absolute just competitors on that team. But after Kuzmenko left, like I feel like there isn't that jokester, as far as like from what I know of, from what I can tell.
Yeah, the air is going to get heavy in that room where they need, guys like Kuzmenko can help keep it light for sure.
Zadorov can keep things light though too, right? He has the ability to.
He can try to do the gritty.
Yeah.
And he'll attempt humor. Like, I don't think Nikita's shy as far as trying to be that guy, but I don't know. Like, Kuzmenko had like a certain level of charisma that just kind of comes with his personality that is almost kind of hard to replace once you lose him.
Zadorov brings a different type of energy to a room. You know, whether or not that's positive or negative, hey, that's outside of what we know. That's for sure. But you can kind of squint at it to see where he's coming from. But yeah, Kessel, I think, will really be a beneficial part for all those Kessel Vancouver haters out there to that locker room, because man, the stories that we hear about Phil Kessel, do you not want that man on your team, whether or not he's like actually in the lineup or not? Like, God, I think the difference between like Kuzmenko, who was in and out of the lineup, you know, kind of finding his way, and Kessel, who is funny as hell and is he's won 3 cups.
Yeah.
3 cups. That brings a lot of notoriety and swagger, let alone charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent for all you RuPaul fans out there. We are, so the fact that anybody who's upset about having Kessel on the Canucks, go fucking pound sand.
And while I'm all for us having a Phil Kessel conversation, I just want to remind people he hasn't even played for Abbotsford yet. Never mind getting him up to the Canucks. So we might be getting ahead of ourselves as far as slotting him into the NHL roster right now. But as far as having fun around Phil Kessel, everyone knows he loves hot dogs. Someone take him to Japa Dog, man. Welcome to Vancouver.
There's a Costco. There's a Costco concession right outside the arena.
True. Yeah, I guess that joke is perfectly there. But
Japa Dog is not.
Japa Dog is a perfect Vancouver like twist on what he's known for. So that's where I was going.
And within the past week and a half, I've had one of those Costco hot dogs. Damn, they're good.
Now I gotta go get it. Damn it. I think it's like, I think that's what you're bringing in Phil Kessel for. Kind of bring some levity into the room in a very long playoff run, and hopefully a long playoff run, and guy that's going to be a 13th, 14th forward, maybe a 12th every once in a while. No one is expecting him to come in and be the HBK line from years ago. But he is going to bring some levity into the lineup, and he's,
Sorry, Kevin. I think at very most he's going to be a black ace.
Yeah.
I barring some sort of, I'd say 2 injuries, he's not going to be hitting the lineup.
And Cup teams have those type of people that bring in some levity every once in a while. Like, you look back at 2004, Mike Commodore was the levity for the Flames. 2011, there was levity. Yeah, you need that kind of thing when you're going through a really long, stressful time. And look, the playoffs are stressful. It's very emotional. It's going to be very tiring. You need something to kind of lighten the mood. And that's what I think Phil Kessel can do. I do think that there's a lot of flaws within Kuzmenko's game. We'll get into that a little bit later. But the one thing that Kuzmenko does bring is energy, which I think was needed in the Flames lineup, is probably missing in the Canucks lineup. But Kessel will bring that into it there. As far as do we want to just have a quick conversation about what we've seen from Lindholm so far? I'm the Elias Lindholm defender, so I'm maybe biased. Maybe you guys have a different, what you're seeing so far is something different. But what have everyone thought of Lindholm so far?
Well, let's hear the subjective take, and then we'll let you know if you're being subjective or objective.
I think Lindholm is
This is
still
the
kind of
subjective
trying.
take.
I think Lindholm is still, for the most part, trying to find his way. But I feel like one of the things that the Flames didn't do that I will credit Devin for, that the Canucks have done, is try to put him in positions to be more offensive. There was a debate years ago in Calgary if Lindholm was a center or a winger, and they decided to keep Lindholm at center. But there were times last year that maybe it would have been, if you would have loaded up the Kadri, Huberdeau, Lindholm line, maybe things would have been different. But Daryl Sutter was just Sutterbin on everything. At least Tocchet is trying him in different areas and trying to kind of see where he fits. So I think that's been mostly it. But to me, he's getting his feet wet. But I think he's one of the best players that plays a position he knows how to play his position. Like, if you have him playing center, he will know his defensive responsibilities of being a center and a winger. And I think he's one of the better players in the league that does that. But it's trying to, I think the debate and one of the questions will be going forward is who plays center between Pettersson and Lindholm, and who plays wing. I think that's an interesting debate or question. Overall, I don't think he's been he's not been amazing, but I don't think he's been bad. I think he's still getting his feet wet.
Yeah, I've liked what I've seen from him. He's the details are there. It's just finding the chemistry with Petey, finding the chemistry with Hoagie, and I think if they stick with that line, there could be something there going forwards into the stretch run and into the playoffs. And then if you can, and then having the Miller line, and then you've got the third line there, once they're fully healthy again. I said this earlier. I think that's a really good sort of, like, you got the top six, you got that third line, and that's gonna be tough to handle for teams going forwards if they can get all three of them going, or at least get going for the most part. And I think I've liked what I've seen from Lindholm so far. He's made some really smart plays. I think he set up Höglander on just basically a really fucking good forecheck. He went in, boxed out the defenseman. Hoagie was able to come in, take the puck, and put it in. But it was all made by a really good forecheck from Lindholm. So, and I really think the chemistry will come, and I think you will see another level from both Pettersson and Lindholm once they really start to play more instinctively with each other.
Yeah, overall, I've been fairly happy with what I'm seeing. And like I touched on earlier, like instant chemistry is the hope, but you can't expect that. And I think he's done a decent job as far as fitting in as well as he has so far. Like you guys, or I think Kev mentioned, he's already gotten 5 goals in the brief time with the team. So like, I feel like he's done a decent job of acclimating himself in with the Canucks. But obviously, there's always hope that that's going to steadily improve the closer we get to the playoffs and then in the playoffs.
I think that not fully watching how well he's done within the past 7 games. I watched his first game where he scored 2 goals, which is very much a gut punch to Flames fans, let alone myself. But overall, I think looking at it, you could have one of two things you could really do. You could have him on that line with Pettersson, and so you would have kind of a good two-way game, depending on whether or not he's going to be playing center or not. If he's playing center, then he's more defensively driven. But if he's on that right wing, then he could easily, as Sean alluded to, be a good forecheck guy, and he has a hell of a shot, which Kev mentioned that I've been talking about for years. Or you could have him center Miller and Suter and put Besser on that top line, and then have more of a scoring line and more of a defensive potential line as well. So I think Tocchet has a lot of different tools within the top six, which makes it super scary when you go into the playoffs, and hopefully you can find some chemistry on both ends, and depending on the circumstances of the game, that he can switch up the lines to be beneficial for the Canucks and what they need during the game. So there's a lot of different ways you can kind of go with Lindholm, and that's why he is so beneficial on the Canucks, because there's so many different ways you can use them in comparison to the Flames, where it's like, well, where do you put him? Top line center. That's all you got.
And unfortunately, part of the problem and we'll transition to the Flames here shortly, but the part of the problem is the Lindholm-Huberdeau experiment, for whatever reason, and I think there'll be a book on this later, it didn't work. And I don't know why. It just didn't happen the way that it was supposed to. And, I think he got painted a little bit of a villain in with the Flames, unfortunately. Some says his contract demands were too much, whatever, but I think he's in a much better situation where, he's competing for playoffs, and I think he's not being pigeonholed forced to be with one guy. There's ways that you could use Lindholm in a number of different ways as you head into the playoffs, as Devin mentioned. So I think he's in a better situation for as going forward into the offseason. Whether or not, whatever happens after that, we'll see. But yeah, in terms of that, that's kind of where I'm at. Is there anything else with the Canucks we want to talk about?
I would really want to talk about Ian Cole and how he needs to be on that first power play.
Oh,
I mean, he scored today.
It's second goal of the year. Hey, he's going to be on a streak here, guys. Let's get him on that first power play so we can keep that rolling.
Let's take off North candidate Quinn Hughes.
Sorry, who is that? Who?
Spoken like a true person from Ontario.
Oh, we'll get to Ontario in a little bit here. But speaking of Andrei Kuzmenko, and of course the Flames getting him, he scored in his first couple of games. He scored three goals, which hasn't been too bad. But today was a very interesting day. Let's first of all do the congratulations before we get into Kuzmenko here. Congratulations to Oliver Kylington scoring his first goal coming back. I think that this has been a tremendous story of perseverance, and it's great to see him back in the Flames lineup. And he's a 6D, but I think he's been really serviceable. He scored a goal. I think probably gave a little bit of life to a very lifeless team of the Flames lately. And congratulations to Sean Monahan for a natural hat trick against his former team in the first period. How about that for Sean Monahan? I mean, there was Flam fans not even mad about it. It was like, that's great. And I mean, you got to give kudos to the Montreal Canadiens, just as a sidebar, to get, not only did you get a first round pick for taking Sean Monahan, you got a first round pick for trading Sean Monahan. That is asset management. Anyway, but Andrei Kuzmenko was moved from the Igor Sharangovich to Jonathan Huberdeau line down to Kevin Rooney and Walker Duehr. He had to play on the fourth line. And, I wasn't surprised, to be honest with you, because of course we've seen Andrei Kuzmenko and his details in the game. And yes, he can score. Yes, he can create some humor, but there is a lot of lack of details in his game. And I think that the Flames are dealing with that frustration that the Canucks have been dealing with for the last little bit. So I'm not really surprised. Now, do I think that Kuzmenko is going to stick around on that fourth line? Probably doubtful as the season wears on here. But I think that is it's interesting to see that pain that the Canuck fan base has been seeing the Flame fan base is about to see with Kuzmenko. But yeah, I think any comments about Kuzmenko? So before I move to the next part, which is the big part.
He seems like very much like a Mike Hoffman type of player that is very good on the power play. Have much else to really brag home about. Uh, so it's one of those ones where, yeah, he's good to have, but overall, if you're looking for a 200-foot game, it might be a very hard for him to really learn that style of game, considering how old he is and what he's done throughout his entire life. So temper your expectations, understand what his gifts are, and if he's able to stay with the Flames and pot 20 goals and have, let's say, 10 to 15 points on the power play, I'd say they count that as a win.
Yeah,
he's an enigma for sure, and unfortunately, he is a hell of a character. The charisma just oozes out of him. He quickly becomes people's favorite players, just because of that charisma. But yeah, he needs to just figure out how he can stay to be the to earn the coach's trust when games are tight, and not just be a power play merchant.
Yeah, that's what is at issue here. With that, Chris, did you have anything to add?
I haven't really watched anything from since the trade, so I can't really comment about how he's been in Calgary.
Fair. But the center of attention has been the trade market. Elliot Friedman reported that Noah Hannafin is on the market now, somewhat officially, as not surprisingly, he turned down the Flames. Whatever the Flames offer was, he said no. Sounding like if he says if he's going to play in Canada, it will likely be a rental, and there's probably an extension if he heads to an American team. Of course, we got Chris Tanev, who, of course, we've been waiting for a while to wonder what's happening there, and then Jacob Markstrom. And the reports were a couple of weeks ago, 2 hockey night in Canada's ago, Jacob Markstrom, the mention was the Flames and the Devils, and the report was that it was turned down because of salary retention. Kind of feels like whatever the Jacob Markstrom situation is going on seems to be back, and it's just, Devin, I don't know. I guess I don't really know where to begin with all of this, because it feels like just a huge distraction in a lot of ways. And I understand, I guess, with Markstrom, this is my annoyance with the Markstrom situation. I understand Tanev and Hannafin that if they're not coming back, you really need to make that trade before March 8th. I just don't really get the rush on trading Jacob Markstrom now. Like, to me, and we talked about this last week with Dan, but there feels like 2 or 3 teams that really would be involved in the Markstrom conversation. Whereas opposed, if you wait until the off season, and just there would be more teams involved. Whoever it doesn't feel that their goaltending is good enough to get them to the next round would probably get involved in a Markstrom conversation. And and I think we kind of know a little bit more where the salary cap is, and I still think you would get a pretty big load for Markstrom than you would have to now. I mean, and I understand the appeal in New Jersey, but I really do feel this should be an off-season move.
It really depends on what you're looking at as comparables for a Markstrom trade. If you feel like that the New Jersey trade is going to give you the most or give you a decent amount back at this time in comparison to other goaltender trades in the past, then I think you want to jump on it right now. Personally, just because there's a need for one team, especially for New Jersey, who has Jack Hughes back after being injured. Their goaltending is garbage, and you have a Metropolitan, let alone an East that is very much up in the air right now. Who knows who's going to be taking control of that other than Florida and Boston, essentially. So why not jump on that train right now and go for it? Granted, yeah, there's another side of the coin that is like, okay, well, what if? Man, if it is anything close to what I've heard being a part of that trade, it's hard to say no. It is really hard to say.
What are you hearing? Just
I'm hearing a first, I'm hearing a Holtz or a Mercer, and then I'm hearing a B-level prospect on top of that. And talk about 3 really great trade chips and assets coming your way. So from what I've heard as well is that it's not done yet. I think that New Jersey is going to go around to other markets. So you go down and see what's happening with Mackenzie Blackwood. Okay, what are the pros and cons there? You're going to go around and see what UC Saros. Hey, maybe. I don't know. Go down to see UC Saros, see what he is asking for and what Barry Trotz wants out of that. And then it sounds like that Calgary.
Sorry?
Yeah, I'd say Merzlikins. I would say that you have the top tier of Saros and Markstrom, and everybody else is just, okay, are we trying to do a swing and miss here? Or are we actually trying to fucking go for it, especially when you have 2.5 years left on Markstrom's contract? And I don't know what's Saros at right now. I guess that's the other big question, right? Just to kind of see comparables for that. And Saros has 1 year left after this year. So I would think that the acquisition cost for New Jersey would be very similar to Nashville, and you'd probably get 1 more year out of Markstrom. So Markstrom is probably the best move to go forward, especially for an up-and-coming team like New Jersey. So in my mind, it makes a lot of sense to let that happen now, because this is the best season that Markstrom, I think, has had throughout his entire career as far as numbers go. So why not capitalize on a team that's in need, and that you get an NHL player, a first-round pick, and a B-level prospect, and maybe even another pick on top of that, considering there's going to be salary retention.
I think, Kev, the Flames are being patient with this, and I think if the asking price is starting to be met by New Jersey and all that, then they need to explore it. Because if you're getting a Mercer or a Holtz in return, you're like, draft picks aside, if you're going to get a Mercer or Holtz in return, you have to entertain it. Because I think that's insane that they're willing to give up Mercer. Holtz, I don't know where they're at with him. He's right there, but if they're willing to give up Mercer,
he's a hell of
you have to entertain that. Yeah, you have to entertain that. So it's I think, and the fact is, like, I don't think part of me, why I say that I think they are being patient with this is because it's been nothing, and then it was very close, and then it has fallen off, and you haven't heard anything else other than maybe it percolating again, because maybe New Jersey is starting to up their offer again, because retaining for 2 more years after this, that could add another significant asset. And yes, that does put potentially Dustin Wolf in the crosshairs as a true blue, like, NHL goalie now. But I don't think that's necessarily him as the starter. You've got Dan Vladar there. You can go as a tandem going forwards, and you're adding significant assets to your system. You can't look a gift horse in the mouth. And then if you have a desperate team like New Jersey, if New Jersey is that desperate to give up a Mercer or a Holtz, you have to go down that. You have to go down that path. You have to figure out what the actual trade looks like.
And not only that, but also remember that it's not Conroy and company that are leaking or actively shopping the stuff getting out about Markstrom, it's guys like Elliott and Merrick that are the ones that are putting these rumors out there, or speculation, whatever we want to call it.
Well, I think that whether it's speculation, rumors, or all that, the information I don't think it's coming from the Flames.
No,
I do think it's coming from New Jersey and all that, because they're trying to pressure the Flames into making that decision quicker.
Yeah, they're trying to figure out the price and angle and timing and all that. Yeah.
So I think it. And Kev, you do make a lot of good points in terms of there is no rush, and I agree with you. But if you can't just say, well, I'm not going to trade him until the summer, and then you get this ridiculous offer, and then you still say no.
And especially now that New Jersey's basically on the precipice of getting back into the playoff picture, they're probably going to be a little bit more willing to potentially gamble and give something up that they might not in the offseason.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good point. I mean, and if Dawson Mercer is involved in the trade, I think the Flames have to look at it for sure. So I see that point, but it just feels like more chaos. I mean, and now Hanifin. I think Hanifin and Tanev, they will be gone by March. Whether the Leafs get involved in that, and maybe one team is trying to combine one of Tanev and or Hanifin with Markstrom. I wouldn't be surprised if that is part of that conversation. I'm not an insider, but I know that Brad asked for about Tanev and Zadorov when the Zadorov trade was out there, but didn't happen.
The Canucks are asking about Tanev, adding Tanev to the Lindholm deal as well. So,
yeah.
And I mean, realistically, they have John Marino on with the Devils for 4.4 for the next 3 years after this. So, if they think that they're in contention mode, then a Tanev for Marino plus, let's say, a third, fourth wouldn't be out of the question, I don't think, as well. And the other thing is that you really got to look at Markstrom, and he has a no movement clause. So you do have to ask him, but him being 34 years old, I would assume that he wants to go to a place that wants to win and has the ability to win, especially at his age. So, and why not combine the two?
As well as stability too, I think, is what he wants. Yeah, he wants to be able to go there, be part of a winning team, but be part of that winning team for a while, at least until the end of that contract. He doesn't want to be there for a year and then there'll be this sort of thing in 2 years when he's when his contract's up.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they actually already approach him about potentially waiving the no trade before the deal fell through?
That's the understanding.
Allegedly.
Yeah. The reports are, I think there were reports out that they did go to him. Yes.
But it was near the end of the conversation, being like, hey, they had the structure of the trade not written in stone, but they have the structure of it. So like, hey, what do you think about this? And he's like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. I mean, if, I get it. I understand what the Flames are trying to do here. They got to get younger. They got to build that prospect pool up. So I totally understand that. And it's a lot of wait and see with the Flames and really, I also understand that from Markstrom's position. You lose your best friend Lindholm. You're going to lose one of your other best friends in Tanev, and probably one of your better defensive pairs in Tanev and Hanifin. Yeah, I can understand why he's saying, okay, we'll try somewhere else. Thank you for your time. And
But now on the other hand, Kev, like your point isn't out of take or outlandish, because like realistically, there would be a lot more potential candidates or teams involved within that trade in the offseason. Whether or not they would have those three things of a young roster player, a first round pick, and essentially.
Yeah, so let's go through a couple of them quickly here that would be potential. Let's say I don't want to trade with the Oilers, but let's just say the Oilers lose to Vegas in the first round, which it looks like that's the first round matchup. And Skinner is the problem again, or it appears to be Skinner the problem again. Would you rather have Mercer or Dylan Holloway?
Mercer.
Okay, and if it's the Leafs, and the Leafs are out in the first round, sorry, Devin, and it's goaltending again, would you rather have a Matthew Nye / Fraser Minton or Dawson Mercer?
I think Minton has a little bit more upside than Mercer does, but that's just maybe regional bias of where I live now.
I'd have Mercer. That's where I would go with that one.
It's fair.
I'm trying to think, is there any other team? The other team that I would be curious that gets involved in this in some way is Detroit. But I don't know if they have the prospect. I don't think they have the. Do you realize Detroit? Did anybody just realize Detroit is turning old? Or did that just skip over everybody's?
Again, it's the mythical rebuild, burn it down rebuild doesn't work. And they went out and signed players like Andrew Kopp, JT Compher, Ben Sherratt, Jeff Petrie,
Patty Kane
to fill out Patty Kane, that's kind of what happens these days. And so Detroit would be interesting, but I do think they might have something with Alex Lyons. So
I also wonder about LA. They are an interesting situation this season.
Yeah, they
do. LA's a team for sure.
Yeah. There's some pieces. I mean, you got Arthur Kaliev, which I think a lot of teams would want. I would take Mercer over Kaliev.
How about Byfield over Kaliev? Or sorry, Byfield over Mercer.
Oh, I don't think
you're trading Byfield though.
I think this may be a hot take, but I think Quinton Byfield may be a consideration for either the Four Nations Cup or the Olympic team.
I've heard otherwise that they would be potentially, Byfield is not off the table. He's not a non-starter.
I think he's a non-starter. I just don't think it would be for a Markstrom.
Yeah.
Banners fly forever, fellas. Just saying.
They do.
Oh, I don't know how you win without a Quinton Byfield, though. I would not be giving that guy up. That would be literally be an untouchable for me. That's, but that's me. Yeah, but LA would be an interesting one as well. And then I guess Hannafin, the two teams kind of in the forefront now are Boston, his hometown, or where Matthew lives, and in Florida. And Florida's placing Anton Lundell on the table, which I think is I don't think the Flames are strong at center. I think they could use another center, and I think Lundell would be a good fit, versatile guy, but we'll see. And
I'm not sure what the depth is there at center for Florida, though.
No.
Yeah, I feel like Florida's I know everybody has Florida as the best team in the East. I still think it's the Rangers.
My whole thing with a lot of these, what we hear for names out there is I wonder how they're getting out, who's leaking them, and what their motivation for leaking them is.
Yeah.
So it's always, yeah. I just don't. I'm always skeptical with that.
Yeah.
And Kevin, I get why you're still kind of with the Rangers, but with the season that Shesterkin is having, I'm really wondering if it's their season.
Jonathan,
if he was on fire, I would absolutely be with you. But the fact that he's actually been struggling this season, I'm kind of curious how far they actually go.
Well, they got Jonathan Quick as a backup, I still don't. I still think they have the best blue line in the league. They have a criminally underrated line in Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider. They have had a couple of injuries. I mean, it's the Cheeto one, and then Blake Wheeler. That was a horrible injury. But they have the assets to flip to get the guys that they need.
They do not want to give up that first rounder.
No.
That's very apparent.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's fast. I'm more on the Rangers in Florida, but I totally get it. I think
how long is Shesterkin going to be this struggle like this though?
Yeah.
If he gets back to the Shesterkin we know, they're going to be a very tough out.
It's so funny because people are shitting on Shesterkin, but they're still 6 points up on the Hurricanes and 10 points up on the Flyers in the Metropolitan, and those are 1, 2, 3 right there. So realistically, you're kind of
poor Dev.
Internet troubles.
The internet. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. But go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, I think it's in terms of the spots for Hannafin. Yeah, I think. Hey, Dev.
Hi, the country.
As you were saying,
Shesterkin, it'd be very weird how he would not be able to get back to form, and that they think that the Rangers are going to be out of it.
Yeah. And if there's one defenseman that would not put up with Matthew Tkachuk's bullshit, it is Jacob Trouba. And I know a lot of people don't like
battle,
but you would love him if he was on your team.
That's a delicious playoff scrap that I'm hoping for.
That's a delicious 7-game matchup that I would want to see.
Yeah.
There's no way that Tkachuk would throw down against Trouba. Trouba would absolutely.
I'm not saying he would throw down, but that battle for a series would be so fun to watch.
By the way, can we just say that the best old school captain in this league is Jacob Trouba? Fucking love him. Love him as captain. Talk about lead by example and fucking follow me to the battle. No one better. No one better.
21st century Scott Stevens.
I mean, granted, you can make that's a good point, Chris. Really good point. You could make an argument for Brady Tkachuk, but he just hasn't been in the league long enough to really sustain himself, because I think him and Trouba are 1-2. But anybody else you think of as a old school captain?
Yeah, I can't think of anything on the spot. I think those two are probably where my brain would have went as well.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, that Matthew Tkachuk versus Trouba in a playoff series this year. Oh, that'd be appointment viewing.
Yeah. Speaking of
trying to take that off, and then Matthew having an amazing goal to just be like, "Fuck you,"
giving the finger to the Rangers.
Pull out the Andrew Ferentz Selly.
Yeah.
I know it would never fly in today's society, but do the high fives as he's going past his bench, and then going like this as he's going past the other bench.
Well, speaking of hot dog, we haven't had a chance to talk about this, and I think the whole drama around it and what was interesting to me is what happened to both of these teams after it. The Ridley Gregg Morgan Riley situation. Riley gets 5 games for his cross-check to Ridley Gregg. I guess the first part of this was the suspension fair?
Yes.
Yeah.
You can't cross-check a guy in the head and expect to not get 6 or 5+ games. Let's be honest.
You can't skate.
No
matter
matter
across the ice. to cross check a guy and not get
End of the game, not a hockey play, revenge. Like there was multiple factors that added up to that suspension.
What, that wasn't a hockey play? Weird.
What was interesting to me, I kind of think the whole situation, I think, has been debated to death. But what hasn't been talked about to me is what happened after. You would have thought that Ottawa was almost unified by this, and Toronto would be in trouble, but it was exactly the opposite. Toronto got on a winning streak here, and Ottawa is back to being Ottawa. I mean, kudos to Toronto for, you lose your best defenseman, and condolences, by the way, to Mark Giordano's father who passed away. So his heart's heavy, but they found a way to keep themselves going. And I mean, full credit for Toronto on this, but for getting themselves going the way that they have been. I think, first of all, with all things that have happened on there, I mean, Austin Matthews just says, screw it, I'll just score goals and we'll solve that problem. Thank you.
Yeah, it is interesting for them to kind of rally around this, and I think it's a little bit of a fuck you to Gary Bettman and maybe not so much George Peros, but I just feel like, if you're going to paint a villain on the NHL, is Gary Bettman's face not a part of that? Is that not where, like, it's front and center right there?
Hasn't it been that way for the past 25 years?
Right. And even though, like, where do you guys think this appeal was going to go? Did you think it was going to fucking do anything? No.
Like, that's actually why they chose 5 games.
It's so
the only appeal couldn't go to Bettman.
It's so ridiculous how it's like, yeah, it's the principle of it. Yeah, okay, the principle of it, sure. To try and get it appealed, but it's, I don't know, it's just, oh God, I feel like the politics get in the way of, like, the reality of the situation. And God damn it, if I fucking hate anything else, like, goddamn hate fucking politics.
Tell us how you really feel, Dev.
My biggest issue right now with this whole situation is that every time there's a high stick or cross check, Leafs fans are bringing it up now.
Oh, Jesus. Is that what's happening?
Yeah.
Have you seen Dangle's tweets the past couple of days?
No.
And I'm okay. Oh. And I'm going to do this right now. I'm calling out Steve Dangle here because he said that bringing up past events and all these ones are not whataboutism. They fucking are, because all you're looking for is the similarities of what between the Riley cross check and all these ones. You're not looking for the differences, and that's the key. That's the key to it. If you can't understand what the difference is between a battle in front where you cross check someone or a high stick versus skating halfway across the fucking ice to cross check someone, we have a problem. Or you're just unwilling to see that, we have a problem. And that's why that's why this is whataboutism and not actual sort of standards and everything that you're looking for. Precedent is what he was calling it. There's a massive difference between what Morgan Riley did, the situation that he was in, compared to a lot of what's been brought up.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it just reminds me of when Evander Kane got the suspension for the Nazem Kadri hit in the Western Conference Final a couple of years ago, and there were a lot of Oiler fans doing the same thing. Look at this hit. Look at this hit. That was a dangerous hit at a wrong time. It's a bad hit, and it needed to be suspended. What Morgan Riley did, although the intention was, well, I guess the frustration was valid. He shouldn't have used his stick. He should have used his fist. Or tried to, or at least shoved them. I think everyone would have been like, okay, that's cool, I get it. But the cross check to the head, and yes, it was head. It was a dangerous play.
I think you should have like picked him up and throw him against the boards personally.
Yeah,
Because really, Greg is not a big person, so you just have to pick him up by the armpits, chuck him against the boards, and then it's fine. And then it's like, hey, he's just a little kid that's being thrown up against the locker.
Yeah.
Not condoning bullying, anything like that, but I think it's kind of funny in that sense.
but if I'm an Ottawa fan, like this team has just been a disaster this year, like an unmitigated disaster.
So fucking bad.
Like, and you should have found a way. I mean, like this should have kind of got you some unified, but they haven't won since this game. It's almost getting to the point of like hockey tragedy that Brady Tkachuk has yet to play a playoff game in his career. Like, do you guys realize that Brady Tkachuk has never played a playoff game?
And he's 24.
Like, he brought in Jacques Martin, and that has like this. It is a mess in Ottawa. Like, it's an unmitigated disaster. Like,
they're this year's Canucks.
Yeah, at this point, they just need to hit the reset button and just wait for the offseason.
They have such a good top 6. I would even arguably say top 9. Yeah, you have Timmy Stützle, you have Brady Tkachuk, you have Drake Batherson, Josh Norris, Ridley Gregg. As much as people don't like him right now in Toronto, Shane Pinto, who just came off of that suspension, and let alone you have Claude Giroux and Vladimir Tarasenko. Like, who would not want any of those in their top 6 as far as their forwards go?
Though.
Well, if you're looking at the age group here, you have Stützle 22, Tkachuk, Norris at 24, Batherson 25, Joseph 27, and Ridley Gregg is 21. Shane Pinto's 23. Like still,
I mean, that sounds like the same age group that the Canucks core is at.
It's not far off.
Canucks are a little bit older, and I think that's just it makes it. They haven't learned the details, the staples, as Rick Tocchet would say, and you just need to keep going. And like Jacques Martin is a good coach for that. Whoever they bring in long term, I think will be a someone who's going to help teach them that. But there was also a lot of other distractions on this team that kind of throw things out the window here. When you've talked about Shane Pinto, he had his suspension. You had the whole ownership change, let alone the team being penalized a draft pick for Pierre Dorian's fuck up with the with a trade earlier as well, the Dadonov trade. And it's just then you add on there, like you had Brady basically fighting the fans who were cheering for DJ Smith to be fired, who eventually did. They lost their GM, their coach. There's a lot of turmoil in Ottawa this year. They're a team that I think you take a look at, and they do have a lot of talent, but I don't know if they've got the right people behind that talent, right players behind that talent that help make it work. You look at the Canucks. They made a lot of changes in the lower end of the lineup this year, and what a difference that's made. The stability of Rick Tocchet, the stability of the management group team, the management after the last couple of years. Ottawa, I don't know if they'll make that turn next year, but look 2 years from now. That's when I wouldn't be surprised if we see them have a season similar to what the Canucks are having this year, and maybe starting to build off of that.
And granted, with Ottawa as well, you have at least $3.4 $1 million of dead cap of Matt Murray, Bobby Ryan, Colin White, and Michael Del Zotto. So, I mean, that's a good third line player right there. A good, as Sean was talking about, a good bottom six player that could, a character guy who could come in and show the boys the way. And I mean, granted, if you're looking for if you are looking for someone who's going to come into your lineup in your bottom 6, that's going to be your raw guy, then I don't know. It'd be hard to say that team is going to be successful, but I do understand you want those role players a part of your team to show the work ethic that you need to bring in. But they do have that 3.45 available next year to really kind of help this lineup out.
Yeah. It's really kind of, and again, for those in Flames land that want to talk about a rebuild and, everything is going to be hunky dory, and it's not this magic beans that you think it's going to be. And I will point to Ottawa as one of my exhibits as they continue to have to rebuild and figure this out. It's not going to be as easy as everyone is making it out to be. It's not just about drafting properly and acquiring elite talent. That's part of it, but there's a lot more to it. And I think people are forgetting that. As we lose Devin again, he'll be back as in a second, I'm sure. Anything else? Of course, there's I threw a bunch of other things on there. Do you want anything else before we get to one last question that you think is interesting to talk about?
I mean, I feel like the fact that the Penguins losing Gensel until after the trade deadline is at least worth mentioning. Maybe not a full-blown discussion, but at least worth mentioning.
I think in terms of that's just unlucky. I know there's a lot of talk about the Flames, specifically with Tanev sitting him down before trading him. I think I hate that. I think it's I think it's just doesn't work. I think you have to keep plugging away at it and keep playing, treating it like any other day. Don't try and treat it special, and go from there. Like it sucks. Sucks for the Penguins. Honestly, they'll probably end up re-signing him anyways if they can't find a trade suitor for him. So it's not that big a deal, but I understand the thought process behind like potentially sending a potential trade piece down, but I just don't, unless the deal is imminent and you have to get through the game first to make sure that to get through some of the paperwork and maybe no movement clauses or no trade clauses to go to be taken care of. You keep plugging away as a normal day.
Timing is everything within that as well. If they are a week away from the deadline and they feel like they have some sort of traction within a trade, I would think that, or maybe even a week and a half, you sit down Tanev because he is injury prone. You do not want to lose that trade chip and make sure that he is able to be traded and have that longevity or however long he has with that new club, right? But I do agree with Sean that the majority of the time between when's the trade deadline?
March 8th.
March 8th, yeah.
So yeah, maybe half a week before March starts, then you might want to start thinking about that. But unless there's something that is brewing, then you want to keep him playing and moving and having some playing time. But if there's something that is brewing, I have no problem for the Flames to sit him down for a week to at most a week and a half, right?
Can I push back on the Tanev injury prone narrative though? He's missed 20.
He's not injury prone. He's just high risk.
Yeah, that's
I was actually going to make a joke or make light of that, and just in the sense of like, hey, Chris, can you please just hold off on blocking shots with your face?
Yeah. Yeah. The other one I just wanted to quickly mention, congratulations to the PWHL who set a women's hockey attendance record in Toronto with Montreal and Toronto. I think that's been one of the great hockey stories, the success of that so far. And I think hopefully we'll see some expansion within the next couple of years, maybe a couple of teams out west. But it does sound like it's off to a great start. And I'm really happy to see that. There's been a major trade already. There was a controversial goal that today, I don't know if anyone saw it, but the net was off its moorings and the goal still counted. It was fascinating to see that. Go check that out. That was fascinating. But that's the other one. Congratulations to the PWHL. Let's go to one last question. Who has the one last question?
That's me.
All right, let's do it.
Dev got it. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. So, if you guys were a
Was that intentional? I almost feel like that was intentional.
Oh, that's got to be intentional. Oh, no, that has to be.
I guess we'll find out in about 5-10 seconds time. But maybe just quickly before one last question, Columbus did fire their GM, Kakalainen.
Yeah. I think that happened far later than I thought it would.
Yeah, and I think it was basically just insurance of like, hey, we don't want you to affect our trade deadline because we potentially have other plans.
And one of the words on the street is they were close on Lindholm, which I would be very curious of what that trade would have been. But
try and find that Johnny and Elias magic again, I guess.
Yeah, apparently. But yeah, Columbus, a disaster. He's back. We thought that was intentional, by the way. You just walking out like that.
What was intentional?
If you guys had,
yeah. That was the question and drop.
I promise you it wasn't. I promise you it wasn't. It's rolling. I don't know where I left off, but yeah.
And then just start from the beginning.
Sorry, what?
You only got like 4 words into your question, so just start from the top.
Okay. All right.
Oh God.
Oh my God.
Do we try one last question without him at this point?
I want to
Or maybe to say that is the one last question. We're done.
No, come on. We got to give him a shot.
I mean, if I'm coming up with one on the fly, is kind of based off of what I was kind of touching on earlier. Do we want, not in like a Canucks of 2 or 3 years ago, where we were like, let's intentionally tank or what have you, but like, do we want the Canucks to go through a little bit more adversity before they get to the playoffs, so that way they maybe feel like they're a little bit more road tested, as opposed to just basically this hot streak that has been beating regression predictions all season long?
Here's Devin. What the hell? There we are. I got to screenshot your face right now because this is hilarious. Sorry.
All right. Before we lose him again, Dev, quickly, what's the question?
Get it out.
Okay, guys. If you could be a hockey player, what type of hockey player would you be and why? And like, you give examples of people or of players as well. It's not like a relevant right now type of thing. It's like, okay, bigger picture. That was my one last question.
I'm going to let the Holmes Smith, or at least Sean, answer that first, just considering he went the furthest of all of our minor hockey playing careers. Well, Dev, you don't count because you asked the question.
Yeah, Devin did go further, but I understand what you're saying.
But yes, Dev,
By a long
in actuality, yes, Dev actually is the most accomplished hockey player of the group.
I'd be a Kevin Bieksa type, flat out. I'm pretty sure that's what I was anyways when I did play.
Yeah, you definitely were.
That was one of the easiest questions I can add because I think about it all the time. Like if I ever gotten anywhere, I would have been Bieksa because I just had that mean streak. I love playing with that mean streak. I love chirping. Yeah. Bieksa.
I think if I were, because I only made it to first year Pee Wee, so I never really got nearly as far as either of you guys, but I was definitely both center and winger. And I tend to be more serious than jokester type, so kind of the opposite of Sean in that regard. So I think I might be more of a JT Miller type.
No. You're not as much of a hothead as JT Miller.
Have you seen competitive me though?
Touche.
Because I don't give up on shit. Like once I commit to something, I go in with 110%, and that's kind of where I see that.
You are
parallel.
a stubborn mule. Yes.
Yeah. Well, even my dad disagrees in the comments.
No. From
I mean, if you want
Yeah.
to give a suggestion in replacement of that, go for it. But that's my honest take.
If we're gonna stick with more of a Canucks themed,
You don't necessarily have to be Canucks themed. I wasn't going that angle when I picked him.
yeah, I would probably say more of a Brock Besser or a like Dakota Joshua type, strong, a little more on the quiet side in terms of that, all that, but still a very reliable, maybe just a little bit late player.
Do you mean slow?
No, I got distracted.
I'm just kidding, Chris. I love it. Kev, who do you got?
I would be Blake Coleman.
Married to a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. Well done.
Well, yeah,
Well done.
thinking on my part, but like just the way, like I was thinking, just in terms of style, I wasn't planning on marrying a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. I would not be opposed to marrying a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. By the way, I'm not saying that, or a cheerleader. Okay, we'll stop. But just the way he plays, just consistent, not flashy, gets the job done. That's what I feel like Blake Coleman. I would say I would be Blake Coleman.
Nice.
Dev?
Brought him up on the podcast already. Good old Jacob Trouba.
Yeah. You could throw those elbows like Trouba could.
Oh, yeah.
So Devin's the better hitter, but Sean's the better scrapper. Is that what we're saying?
Well, I'd be curious on Trouba versus Bieksa because Bieksa is a little smaller than Trouba, but Trouba, I think it'd be a good tilt. It would be a good tilt.
Fight Trouba, though, I don't think.
It would definitely be a hockeyfights.com highlight for sure.
Bieksa would 100% fight Trouba in the right circumstance.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
He would not hesitate.
He would. Let me reword that. He would fight him in the circumstances that would be advantageous for him, but he wouldn't instantly fight him. Like he would think fight him. Would that make sense?
Yeah.
If it was
strategic, yeah.
Sean will understand this. If this was a wrestling match, Bieksa would pick it on his time and do a sneak attack first as part of the preview to the pay-per-view, and then that would have the actual pay-per-view match. And then during the match, Bieksa would get in and out of the ring while Trouba is chasing him, and then Bieksa would probably try a cheap shot. That's what I would see happening.
I think good old Jeff just had a nice little icing on the cake. They would both leave with a grin.
Yeah.
100%.
Not wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe in a high five before they go in the box.
Yeah.
Or a good
there would be
respect
chirping in the
handshake,
box.
old school handshake. Yeah.
Yeah.
There would be chirping in the box for sure.
Yeah.
Would love to have the mic in there. That'd be so good.
Oh
Yeah.
god,
By the way,
that needs to be a pay. If the NHL wants to make more money, you have people pay for the R-rated penalty box mic.
Holy fuck.
And if we're talking about WWE and penalty box chirping, I just want to quickly bring up Jack Hughes. People pay to see me play.
That was so good. Oh, that was a good chirp.
The mic drop chirps are the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, just back to the Rangers, Florida, if I had that series, Ryan Lomberg would be in that series as well.
Yep.
And appointment viewing for Tuesday. It is the Winnipeg Jets playing the Minnesota Wild. The first time they played since the Brendan Dillon controversy.
Yes.
Ooh.
Oh, damn. That'll be good.
Yeah.
So that's tomorrow.
That's the Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
Well, I guess we all know what we're doing tomorrow evening.
Yeah.
I'm working, but I'll watch the game when I get home for sure. Well, so we'll leave it there so we can get off to watching, doing whatever we need to do. How do we follow everyone?
I am Bearded Connect 03 on Twitter.
I'm at Schneids on all the social medias.
You can
Oh man, the timing.
Kevin
That's what I struggle with. It's the timing of these drops.
Devin's
Oh.
and he does most of his work on Instagram. Tyler is TNOBLE on social medias. I'm KEBULE. Find me on Threads. I'm also doing the work of the Threads. I don't know if Sean and Chris is, but I've caught
I'm
on.
on Threads.
You're on Threads? Okay, I'll have to follow you.
Hence why I say all the social medias.
That's entirely fair. I'm Kevol on all the social medias. Facebook.com, Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com, Shifts and Pucks. Subscribe wherever you get your audio. And look who's back.
Where can we find you, Dev?
You can follow me at dropsontheinternet.com.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.
Goodbye.